I didn't want to be in the real estate world as it was traditionally with helping people buy and sell things.
We're very similar in the fact that I love getting people together and love seeing
the thousands of people, the tens of thousands of people, the millions of people that are finding.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. This is your host, Lane Taylor. You've tuned into the Equipped podcast and you are now listening to this. It is 2025, which is extremely hard to believe that it's 2025. 2024 seemed like it was just yesterday, and most likely when you're listening to this, it was most likely just yesterday. So everyone that listened and tuned in and shared the Equipped podcast in 2024, I welcome you to this new year. I'm excited to bring on a very powerful founder, entrepreneur onto the show. We're going to talk about setting yourself up for success, all about business. And I'm really excited to welcome this incredible female business owner to the platform today. So I want to give a warm welcome to Heather Simpson. Heather is the founder and director of Her Connection Hub in Washington State. She created a company that was created to support you, the incredible female business owner. So check out this stuff, guys. She has been and spent over 18 years helping other businesses become wildly successful. Without the help of a coach, mentor, or leader, she built herself up from food stamp living as a single mom to a successful CEO before ultimately stepping away to create what she has created. She's on a mission to bring like-minded women together paired with business knowledge, skill set, and principles that she teaches in the amazing community space. I love what she's doing with Her Connection Hub, especially post-COVID, and I'm excited to have a conversation with Heather. So Heather, welcome to the Equipped podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for that introduction. It's great to be here.
Great to be in 2025. Even though it's 2024, we're talking it's going to be 2025 when this comes out.
Heck yeah.
Tell everyone about yourself with that high-level introduction. Tell everyone who you are and a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So the internet introduction, covered a lot of the bases there, but I am a very passionate entrepreneur. You kind of have to be, right? As an entrepreneur, you have to be really passionate for what you're doing because every day can present so many different unknowns. Sometimes what feels like a punch to the gut or a slap across the face, and you're just kind of out of nowhere. And so you have to have a lot of resiliency and grit and passion along with it. And so that is me pretty much summed up. I have a couple of kids that I just absolutely adore and love being their mom, and have loved really being on this journey alongside them as well, because they've really helped me along the way learn a lot about myself and the things that we've experienced together. As you mentioned, being a single mom for a big part of that. I'm now remarried and we have a blended family, and it's absolutely beautiful. And yeah, right in the precipice of when the world was shut down, I asked for people to come into the doors that I was opening. And it's been a wild ride, to say the least. And it's just really the beginning. And we have big plans for the future. And I'm really looking forward to what that journey brings and the people I get to meet along the way. It's been very rewarding and really incredible so far.
Incredible. I love, first off, I'm excited to have this conversation, because of what you're doing and what you have created, but then also the passion that you have for what you're doing and how clear you are with your vision. And I think what people are going to get from this conversation is your passion for what you've created, what you've loved, but then also the people that you've helped along the way. So I think that's awesome. So tell the listeners how and why you created what you created and all that, because it was during when the world shut down, everything was crazy. So walk the listeners through that.
Yeah. So I'll back up a couple years prior to that. So my career kind of leading up to kind of going out on my own, as you mentioned in the introduction, I kind of always just led with my intuition as far as like the next steps into my journey in my career and how I developed myself. I was in the real estate world. I didn't want to be in the real estate world as it was traditionally with helping people buy and sell things. I did that. I helped a lot of people actually buy and sell homes, but where I really found my thing and where I really lit up and really felt that kind of internal tuning moment was when I was helping people build their real estate businesses. And so in that career in the container of real estate, I was able to kind of work my way into leading others and to helping people build their teams and to helping them create really the business that they wanted for themselves, which ultimately led to helping create a brokerage and leading that as a CEO for a period of time. In that process, typically in our area, at least at the time, it was very male dominated, very cutthroat, not a lot of like open mindset stuff, which I just was really naturally drawn to. And so when I helped start and create a brokerage, I really wanted it to be a very collaborative experience, build a lot of community alongside it, and help people think a little bit bigger than this person next to me is my competition, helping people see that really everybody can be each other's allies and how we can grow within that. And as I was leading other people, I specifically for me as a woman in that field found that I was leading a lot differently than the men that I was leading alongside. And it just was a different type of energy. I really sought out female mentor of sorts. I really recognized that there was a bit of a gap in what I could use as some assistance and didn't find that locally in my area. So what I did was I decided to step away from real estate altogether and do what I did in real estate, but open up the container for kind of any business and really predominantly focus on women-led owned businesses, helping people build their teams, build their careers, build their skill sets, and develop community along the way. With that came a networking group that I started. We kind of joke that it's a non-networking group because it's not your traditional pass around the business cards, make it rain, and just sit there and be like, hi, my name is Heather. And before I could even finish saying my elevator pitch, I'm asking for business. I found that women did business a lot differently. They wanted to build and establish a layer of trust first. And so we kicked off this kind of non-networking group thing, and it built into this big need where people were asking for it full time. And so that's where, pre-2020, a lot of my journal entries are dreaming and planning and scoping out a full-time space, which is now our co-working space. And at the time, co-working was starting to become a thing. There were like the big like WeWorks of the world, but there wasn't a smaller kind of community basis, at least around here in the Pacific Northwest where I'm located. So started that. Of course, 2020 happened to all of us. We couldn't host events. We were really told to stay inside and not see people. And I still pushed forward, still found a space to open because I was like, well, this can't be forever. And especially during that time, I really saw how the isolation really impacted people in a very negative way. And so now more than ever, it was time to make that dream a reality. Did a bunch of TI, spent a lot of money, signed a big lease, and opened up some doors and had a lot of life lessons just in that process in and of itself. And that was now over 3 years ago. And we just expanded our space about a year ago. We've tripled our size and space, membership, and just really have continued to let the inner workings of not what I'm necessarily being told, but what I'm witnessing and seeing kind of lead the way for the business plan from there.
Wow. Okay. I always listen to growth. I always listen to the way things are going right now in a business. So walk me through when you say how they look and how they feel. Walk me through, what do you mean by that?
So when I'm sitting here at our physical space, I sit and watch. I watch people's behaviors. I watch how they engage with others. I look for the unspoken things, for the barriers. A lot of times you can tell so much from that. People may not be able to tangibly tell you the exact thing that they need, but when you see something working and flowing really well, that you know that you've hit it. So for instance, when we moved into this new space that we have now, it's massive. Like I said, it's 3 times the size of the space. It's 20,000 square feet. Lots of room for things to go wrong, lots of room for little hidden things to not be working quite as well. And so just a curiosity and a discovery phase of just watching people, how they work, how they gravitate towards spaces, and making my best educated guess on, okay, if this is how people are operating in this way, and the goal is to bring together community, I'm going to change this space over here to try to incorporate that. So the biggest thing that we did from the very first space that we were in, when you go into a lot of co-working spaces or you go into coffee shops, you see tables facing outward, right? You see the windows lined and people are facing out, like facing towards whatever's on the street. I decided to turn everybody towards each other so that natural conversation would happen, to really help create not a just more organic conversation, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Easier for people to kind of notice different things that people are working on, or different, a coffee that they're drinking or what have you, and be able to just kind of riff off of those things to have that natural connection, make it easy for people to have conversation with each other, because I'm not there being like, hey, have you met Stacy? She's absolutely incredible. And have you met Jessica? Like, she helps people in the virtual space. And like, I'm not physically there able to do that. So how do I take my mission of helping people connect and build out space that accomplishes that without being given an exact roadmap of how to happen or how that would happen?
That's good. Yeah, and what's funny is like when you create, we're very similar in the fact that I love getting people together and love seeing interactions and also sharing. It's all, I would love introducing some of my friends to new friends and saying, "Hey, this have you met him? This is what he does." He's so it's absolutely amazing. And so what you're saying is you're trying to understand psychology wise how people are connecting, why they're connecting. So what has been the biggest aha moment since creating the space that you have created? I mean, are people that are joining your space, okay, or let me ask you this. When people are joining your space, are they coming for the camaraderie? Are they coming for the community? Or are they coming just to get out of the house? Like what are most people doing?
People come for a lot of different reasons. So they think that they need a space outside of their home because they don't get themselves dressed in the morning when they're working from home all the time. It's easier to be a little bit lax. It's easier to be distracted by things. And so people come for the co-working, but then they stay for the community aspect of it. And that's the biggest underlying need that people really have, whether they can articulate that or not. They might come because they're like, well, I don't have any room to put a desk in my home, and now I'm a remote worker. That might be the case, but it's also not impossible. A lot of people do work from their couch, from a dining room table, from wherever, right? So there's all sorts of reasons why people think that they need a co-working space, but then really at the end of the day, it is the community that they stay for. So we joke around that we're a building of coworkers that you actually like.
It is absolutely incredible. I love that. I love the concept of it, and I love it's. Is it? Just, I'm guessing it's go as you please. You pay a membership, and people are there. They come and go. Is when you created the space, when you had this idea of building or bringing people together, specifically females, you said there were some challenges in the beginning. What were some of those challenges that you did not expect?
Well, I think they're seeing if it would really work, first of all. I've mentioned a few times now that we've expanded our space, but when we first opened, we were the largest one in our area. Between here, we're next to the border near Canada. So between here and Seattle, we were really one of the largest co-working spaces that was doing it pretty differently, that didn't have big funding backed behind me, that didn't have multiple business partners. It was just me and my vision and all these breakfast events that we were having that kind of gave me the clues. And then we opened, and then of course we opened during a time where people still had a lot of fear around gathering. And I decided at that time to make a stance that was, I'm not going to govern people within here. If you don't feel comfortable coming, then you don't have to. But you're welcome to wear a mask if you want to, but we are not going to force people to do or operate in any which way. So it's up to you to decide. And then if you want to wear a mask, you're welcome to. If you don't want to, you don't have to, kind of those things. So that inherently, just because we opened so soon we opened in 2021. So at that point, it had been a year and a half into what everybody was experiencing. And that received a lot of backlash. It also received a lot of people that were so excited to kind of be free of that and just be like, yeah, I'm going to make the best decision for me as an adult and not just kind of walk around and be told what to do. Mm-hmm. So that was a challenge. We were on the front page of the newspaper here locally, which was amazing. And then there was like a single line sentence that was, they don't vax check and they don't require masks. And so, being where we're at in Washington, that of course created a little bit of a political thing. And I just kept leading with my intuition and what I felt really called to do. And so that was one thing. Just the makeup of the culture and the climate at that time presented just those very unique challenges that, before we wouldn't have faced if we would have opened in 2019. Mm-hmm. Had some issues with staffing, finding the right people for the job, the kind of old cliche, cliquey female spaces, if not managed well, can kind of create a side that's not very nice or pretty. And there can be an ugly side of gathering without kind of some ground rules of like, we don't do cattiness, we don't do talking about people behind each other. And then that's not just even gender specific, but, community and culture really has to be very intentional. And so we're not going to get it right the very first time that we're doing it. And so really learning through some of those kind of tough things and harder conversations. And then other things that are, probably a topic for another day, but I had a issue with embezzlement from an employee, which kind of created a really surprise, like, whoa. And, as I mentioned, being self-funded created a trickle effect of things that really created a huge mess and nightmare. And, you can imagine what that would all impact. So from the littlest things that actually kind of can fester into really big stuff to really massive things that were just kind of a landslide of like, take you out at the knees. We've experienced that and are still standing. So,
and I thank you for sharing that. No, I mean, I think as entrepreneurs and business owners and entrepreneurs as well, you have to be able to adjust on the fly. You have to be able to understand that there are going to be ups, there are going to be downs, there are going to be challenges. And it's interesting, Heather, as we end 2024. It's, Monday, December 30th right now. And this is a time of reflection, as I'm sure for you as well as a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And I look back on this year and I'm the first one to say it's been a challenging year. There have been ups, there's been downs. And I was having a conversation with a mentor of mine last night. And I simply asked him, I said, can you go back and you say, without a shadow of a doubt, you've ever had a year that's been absolutely perfect? And he was like, absolutely not. And he was like, there's no such thing as that. And that was kind of nice to hear because I thought every year for him was perfect.
And
So
I would say that also for people that are like, oh, well, I've had really easy years, like, then you're not pushing yourself hard enough. You're not actually realizing your full potential. So that would be just like my little asterisk for anybody out there that's thinking, like, oh, yeah, I've crushed it. Like, you may have, but also if you're leaving things on the table there as far as like what your ability is to accomplish and create. So
yeah, no, amen. Amen. Well, I want to talk a little bit about, you've been in the business world for a while and you've helped people, you've scaled people with entrepreneurs. Do you think everyone can be an entrepreneur?
I think that it takes a lot of really thick skin. I think it can be developed. I think that I think there's both nature and nurture. And I think with the right information and the right tools, I fully believe that anybody could be successful at their own thing.
Mm.
And what we learn about the world is that's not, people don't have the stomach for it, or they just don't want to develop the skill set. They're okay with where they're at. They're okay of just climbing whatever ladder that they feel like is success for them and doing that. And that is great because the world needs that too, right? Like we all need to have everything go around. So the short answer is yes, I think anybody does have that within them, but do you want it or not? That's really the question. And, I think most entrepreneurs that really keep going and push themselves and understand that what it takes to go, and always push yourself, there's a little bit of, you can't really care about what other people think or express concern over or what their ideals are of you. You have to leave a lot of that to the side. And that's really hard. And you don't just develop that thick skin immediately. It takes a lot of trial and
On air. Hey, this is a live show, and if people are listening to this right now, they know that a busy founder and CEO is going to get dings. That means things are happening. So you're completely fine.
the only person that's on bypass is my husband. And of course, he's the one messaging me right now. But anyways, so, I do think that anybody can, but also it's okay that everybody's not. And so that's kind of my take on that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think that the ups and the downs of entrepreneurship, kind of going back to it, make it worthwhile, make the highs low, the best. And when you're down in the valley, sometimes the valley can teach you the best lessons, which, I always get to share with people. What are some characteristics throughout your journey and your career are of individuals and business ideas that actually work out? What are some things that you feel like are good attributes for a business owner or an idea that you feel like, okay, yeah, this is going to work, this isn't going to work? What are some of those things?
I think first and foremost, it's really understanding that it's going to take a lot more work than you realize it's going to. And that doesn't mean that you're on the wrong path. A lot of what is being told out there, a lot of people make their money on telling people that if it doesn't feel good all of the time, or if you're not in alignment, then you're doing something wrong. And there's this very Zen-like way to always be running business. And that's just simply not true. Now that I have built myself to a certain point and I do have mentors and I do have coaches and I can invest in those things, nobody that I know or that I've met ever has had a smooth, Zen-like, fully aligned at every single step of the way experience for people that are building something really great. And so I think that people need to understand that you actually, as you continue to go along, you kind of crave those things because that's where you learn the most of the stuff. You don't learn in the easiest of times. You learn when things are really challenging. And so learning how to embrace that is the biggest thing that I see people, for them to be successful, they have to be able to embrace that. when I see people come to me, and more so when I was doing kind of more consulting than I have the capacity for now, it was, well, I want to be able to do this and just, kind of work part-time and and it's like, well, I'll be the first person to tell you that's not going to be very realistic. You can get to that place after a substantial amount of time where you are working more than full time, where you are making no money, and then you can hire the people in order to be able to have a little bit more of that lifestyle. But even at that point, you have to continue to find where your edge is, where your, in the book The Big Leap, they talk about your zone of genius, right? So where is that zone of genius moving forward for you? And until you continue to I understand that it's always going to be a journey of growth, that's not going to be what you can seek out. And maybe you do just go find a job as an employee for somebody that is willing to kind of do that. And that also, again, is fine. But they need to understand the reality and accept that. And the people that don't, the people that choose to ignore what's being said now and by everybody else that is way, way, way miles ahead of me and way more successful than me, they all say the same things. When you choose to ignore that and continue to look for the shortcut or the easier answer, like you're not going to find it. And then maybe this journey is not built for you. So the people that make it and that have that success, they either have some understanding of that as much as they can at the beginning, or they understand that pretty quickly and they lean into it instead of shy away from it.
Roll it back wherever you are. Roll that back 2 minutes. You're speaking my language, and you laced it with love, which I absolutely. And I've had many mentors that have not laced what you said in love, and it has been harsh reality and harsh truth. I don't know if I've ever shared this live on a show. Maybe I have. I can't remember. One of my early mentors who I look up to, and he's a friend of mine. He when we were talking about podcasting, he said to me years ago, "Don't start a podcast." And I'm like, well, I love it. I love the idea of connecting, and I love the idea of interviewing. And he looked at me, and he had been thousands of shows in. He said, "Listen, don't start a podcast." And I'm like, but why? He said, you're going to get burnt out. You're not going to like it. You're not going to get past episode 100, and just don't start it. It's too crowded. And I looked at him and I said, are you being serious, or like, what are you trying to tell me? He's like, I'm trying to save you a lot of frustration. When I got to episode 100, I messaged him and I said, I did it. And he said, congratulations, you just started, stick to it.
Yeah.
But again, mentors will tell you that, and people will tell you that. And you said something just a minute ago. And again, I love being able to say, you go after your passion and keep rolling with it. And the people may not understand what you're doing. And my parents even listen to this show. And when I started to do podcasting, like, are you going to be able to like put food on the table? Like, what are you doing? How are you doing this? And so when someone starts a business, and people may think that they're crazy, and people may talk behind their back, they may make social media posts for them. And I know you probably deal with a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners that have that. And we all are a little crazy. I think entrepreneurs sometimes are all a little crazy, and they can,
yeah,
they're going to do it no matter what. Speak into that person that may be listening to this right now, that they know they have this vision, Heather. They know that they have it, and they know that they want to get this thing off the ground. They're ready to put their foot to it, but they're scared about their inner circle. Like, what are they going to say? Speak to that person, whether it's a female or a male. What would you say to them if you were having coffee with them?
I would say that you can expect that to happen. And that actually gives you all of the resistance and clues of what you're missing and what you need. You need to be tapping into conversations like this, where it is talking about more of the reality of like, we're not telling you to not do it. We're telling you that like you're going to get scars along the way. And then how, right? Like, how do we accomplish that? How do we do that? So like, yes, let's acknowledge like the hardships that you're going to endure and face, and you can never really know what the journey is ahead of you. Expect people to not be supportive, and expect people's support to change over time. So some people that were biggest cheerleaders of me, once I got to a certain threshold, or maybe in their mind kind of surpassed their comfort level for me, that changed the game. So maybe at the beginning it was like, yeah, you've got this, like, you go girl. And then over time it was like, who do you think you are, for wanting more? And or the opposite of people that, you grew up with, parents, whatever, that I will never forget. Somebody that loves me so dearly that said this out of so much protection, said, well, what if somebody comes along with more money and more space and does this too? And I was like, so so what if, like, maybe that might happen? So what? I've already gone from idea to conception to execution. And if I keep looking in the rearview mirror, we all know the analogy, like, you're going to crash if you're driving along the way. So, where that becomes trickier is when maybe we're in a situation where we don't want to let go of friendship, or if it's a family member, you just have to recreate the rules of what that relationship is and how that looks differently now versus where it was when you were on the journey, in the middle of the journey, kind of how that progresses. It changes over time, and don't be afraid of that change. Expect it, lean into it, don't be afraid of it. And as long as you are listening to that passion, that calling that you might have, that you feel on your life, let that guide you, because that will never be wrong. Where people find themselves on the wrong path is where they start listening to the advice of other people that aren't built like you, don't have that calling that you have. And then therefore there creates confusion. And if you're on a road trip and you can go 5 different ways and you decide midway that you need to backtrack and go this way, like, it's going to take you a very, very long time to get to your destination if you keep listening to the passengers in the front seat. So that's not very pretty. It's not very heartfelt, but it's the truth. And I think that it's just so important for you to embrace that. If you have a calling on your life, go do it, despite who says anything about it, is really my thought process.
If your calling is there, it's been put there for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell people, align yourself with individuals that when you cast the vision about your calling, they lean in and ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
They don't push away and tell you what could go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So I can tell, everyone can tell that's listening to this, that you are the person that's leaning in to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
If someone has this calling for doing more or building something more, and they don't know exactly what it is, but they know that in their current situation and circumstances, they aren't happy, whether it be with their job or what they're building. Where do you start with that individual? How would you talk to that person of like, okay, let's figure out maybe what you're passionate about, or what do you like to do? What's a blank slate if someone comes to you that's just not happy?
Well, I guess I would start with, where do they find happiness, and where do they go from there? I mean, there's so many resources out there for people that are trying to find their purpose. And a lot of people that I, really love, his name is escaping me at the moment, but who runs EntreLeadership with Dave Ramsey. What is his name? Just escaped me. While we think of it, he has like a phenomenal thing, like a quiz that you can take online that will help you kind of identify like where your strengths are, and like some career pathways that you can get started. Ken Coleman is his name. Where you can get started. He has a couple of books. He has podcasts, like so many free resources or very low cost to entry type of things where you can tap into that. I would probably point people in that direction, because there are people that solely focus on that and really can speak to that so much more clear than I could. But I know for myself, when I'm ever at like the point where I feel like I'm a little bit at a crossroads where, and I always feel this way when things are going really, really well, I know that it's time for me to level up. And so
Mm.
I have to find that edge, that thing that excites me, that thing that sets me apart just a little bit more, to dive in and lean into that aspect of me that's undeveloped. So that's where I would guide people to start. Is there's a million different resources out there, and it's, almost so that it's overwhelming to choose which is the right start. But listening to podcasts like this, where you can start to have clues, people can guide you and point you into different directions. Lean into anything that feels like that's the spark. Oh, that made my ears perk up. Like, oh, you just naturally lean in. You have to listen to that. And sometimes that also means that you also sit in silence, or when you're doing a workout, you do that without any music or any other distractions, or you go for a walk, and wherever your place of being able to kind of tap into you and your own individual thoughts, you'll give yourself clues, and then you can support yourself by things like resources I just mentioned, listening to conversations like this, to really help put you on a path of, okay, I just took this Ken Coleman assessment. I now have some ideas. Does that mean my own business? Does that mean I go work for somebody else to develop what this looks like, to lean into this and tap to it more? And you just kind of take each next step thereafter. It's not always the perfect map and road plan, but your inner calling will give you that guidance that's really within you. Everything is really within you.
One of the old cliches that you hear everywhere, every podcast, improvement, business, success leaves clues. I love that. It is so simple and people turn their nose up at it. But it's like, it's the truest statement. And I remember realizing that the people that I looked up to and envied were also the ones that would be willing to open up to me and share everything about what they're doing, because they're just good people. I mean, I honestly can sit here and say that I've never met someone that I've looked up to that hasn't told me, hey, you can do it. Hey, this is how I did it, because they want to. And to add to your unbelievable point, like, find people that you want to be like and go ask them. I don't think this is my statement, this is my opinion. I don't think entrepreneurs that just start out are vulnerable enough to ask for help, and they're willing to say, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, please tell me, and I want to ride your coattails. And I think that sometimes could help you speed up the process a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the older I get, I recognize that like cliches are there for a reason. Like there's so
Yeah.
much truth in that. And I agree. Like, who am I to think that the path would be any different, right? So everybody that's successful out there, you can find them one way or another, somewhere out there, with the amazing gift of the internet, of an interview that they've given or things that they've said, that I think people miss because it feels like it's too simple. It's and people confuse simplicity with easy, when it's just this is just it. The thousands of people, the tens of thousands of people, the millions of people that are finding success in their own life are all saying an iteration of the same thing with their own lens on it. They are not all wrong. And so, kind of back to my point earlier, like, stop seeking out, there must be a secret, there must be this, there must be that. There's actually not. The concept is all the same. The strategy of how you get there might be different depending upon your industry, what you're doing. If you're, B2B, if you're B2C, like whatever that might be, the strategy could be completely different, but are you willing to execute? And in the execution is where these concepts that we're talking about, and this being willing to be resilient and keep going and have no plan B, is where you really have to develop that mindset. It's all your own inner work, and there's no shortcut to that. And people are so willing to give their time. And the most successful people might not have the capacity to say, yeah, come alongside. Like, I'll show you step by step along the way, but you can listen to any podcast that they've been on. You can find people a couple of tiers down, people that are in your local area that are so willing to give, and being willing to ask and be vulnerable. I think is a really key component that people miss with humility.
So good.
And then you have to be willing to do the hard work.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. I'm sure are you familiar with Ed Milet?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I tell people, I'll say, he's one of my mentors, and they'll say, wait, hold on a second. He's one of your mentors? And I say, yeah, I've listened to almost everything that he has done. He is a virtual I've never met him, but the day that I do meet him, I will get to share with him that he has taught me a ton of stuff. I mean, I think a lot of people don't understand. I mean, I have 4 to 5 virtual mentors that one day I will see them, I will meet them, and I will say, hey, you got me through this, or you did this, or that. And so I think that's what people need to understand is there's so many resources out there, and you just have to use them to your advantage.
Yeah. I just feel like they're drowning in all of the information. They're starving for the knowledge of it. And that's where you have to weed out people that are making money off of saying those things off of the internet versus the people that have actually have the proven track record, that have the resume, that have gone out and done it because they can speak from the experience. So you have to seek out that wisdom. You have to seek out people that have actually built something and not just making money off of selling you the thing that they're telling you, which is a really important thing that you learn along the way. You listen to the wrong advice, the wrong information. You realize that person's a little bit full of crap because what have they actually ever built? Oh, nothing. Okay, where are the Ed Milets of the world and who have built multiple amazingly successful companies, have figured out so many things and can help my journey not be stress-free, not be impact-free, but just get me a little bit closer and on the right path with the right equipment, right? Like if you're going on a hike, you need to have really, really good shoes. Those people can tell you what shoes to be wearing for that hike, but you still have to execute the hike.
So as we are getting closer to the end, this has been absolutely incredible. This could go on for an hour. Let's go back just for a second to beginning for you. Don't be, I also a lot of internet because they knew that I was going to ask this question. And so the internet knew that it was going to be a little bit of shaky here. So, okay. Don't be humble here. Okay. Be a entrepreneur, businesswoman. What are you most proud of with yourself right now that you have accomplished?
I think the willingness to get up no matter what is the thing that I'm most proud of, and the lessons that I've been able to share with my kids along the way. To be able to fall and show them that that's okay and actually necessary as part of the journey. No matter if it's a situation that is just a hard learning versus something that's maybe a little bit more public, maybe people intentionally trying to take you down. I've experienced a lot of various different challenges and setbacks, and I still show up and still show up true to my character. And that's the thing that I'm the most proud of. Because the thought of another option, the thought of me giving up and going and finding a job or doing anything else makes me feel very uneasy. Not to say that it's easy to continue to go on the path when you feel like you're being beat down every single day. But I can live with myself so much more and endure that pain, knowing that I'm living within my integrity of the promise that I've made to my kids, the promise that I've made to God, the promise that I've made to myself to continue to lead and to try to be so curious about who is the next best version of me and how do I bring that forward into the world. And never giving up on that despite how I feel. It could be easy to stay in bed. It could be easy to have an excuse. It could be easy to have all of that money embezzled from me and being like, well, I guess it didn't work out. Or I could still show up and be like, you know what? I've made all that money before. I can do it again, and I can still keep going. And who would I be if I didn't do this? Who would I be if I didn't honor that commitment and promise? And that's the thing that I'm the most proud of.
What a awesome way to end 2024 as far as a podcast interviewer. So thank you for coming on here. This has been an amazing conversation. I have two more things. I always like to do this with people so the audience can get to know you a little bit. These are what I call rapid fire. They have nothing really to do with anything that we've talked about. These are just one-liners to get to know you a little bit better if people have stuck around. You good with that?
Sure.
All right, here we go. Favorite movie?
Count of Monte Cristo.
Count of Monte Cristo. Favorite book?
The Four Agreements.
What is your go-to Christmas food? Since we just exited Christmas.
I really love a good beef tenderloin.
Beef tenderloin. That's very good. Mm-hmm. Where, Heather, can people find you? If they're local to the state of Washington, where can they get connected with you? Where can they learn about you? Where can they have you on their show? Give me the ins and the outs of everything, Heather Simpson.
Sure. Yeah. Our website is herconnectionhub.com. That's where you can find pretty much everything about who we are. It connects to all of our social platforms and everything. And if you're in the Pacific Northwest, we'd love to meet you, invite you in as a guest at one of our events so you can see for yourself the power of just building community, building the right community, and how much easier, despite the hard path that it becomes when you're surrounded by people that are willing to lean in with you. So I'd love to connect.
I love it, guys. Thanks so much. And Heather, I'm excited of us getting to know each other over this short stint. You've got some amazing things going on, and I'm looking forward to adding any value that I can. And I know that you have added value. Guys, welcome to 2025. If you know that this episode would add value to anyone within your business, within your circle, they make it pretty simple on Apple and Spotify to where you just simply share it and or on YouTube. So do me a favor, do that. And then I say this on every episode, and it really would help if you go over to Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever, give us a 5-star rating and a 5-star review because, again, algorithms, I try to beat them all the time, but I need your help doing so. So with that, thanks so much for listening to another episode of the Equipped Podcast. Happy New Year, and excited to have more individuals like Heather on the show.